Hey everyone, and welcome back to another leadership episode. Today we're talking about one of the most important leadership and I think life skills that we can all build, which is better communication. Whether you're navigating a tough conversation at work, building better relationships at home, or trying to lead a team through a tough change, how you communicate can make or break your influence. So, in this episode, I'm going to break down how to have a better mindset, how to implement these skills that you need, and how to communicate with clarity, empathy, and with leadership personally and professionally. Just as a reminder, as we jump in, I do post daily leadership tips, quotes, book recommendations on my YouTube post tab, so check that out. So, as we jump in, we're going to cover three considerations that you should maybe consider as you want to grow and develop your communication better, and then two specific ways to implement that as a leader and with your team. So, consideration one is communication is not just what you say, it's also what people hear and believe what you said. So, let's start with this. Communication is not just about getting your point across, it's also about connection. If you've ever explained something clearly, but the other person doesn't understand, it's not necessarily because you weren't smart or articulate or you fill in the blank. Many times it's because communication happens at in the listener's mind, not just the speaker's mouth. Just because we're communicating well doesn't equal they understand well. This means effective communication starts with awareness. So, three things to be aware of. One, who am I speaking to? Are they up to speed on what I know? Are we at the same level? Is this the first time that they're hearing about this? That means it's going to take a lot more time to fill them in. If this is several conversations in, are we still on the same page, or is there additional information that they might have or that I have? We just want to clarify that information. Second, what are they feeling and thinking? Now, we can't read their minds as much as that might be nice or bad, but we can remember history. So in other words, was this a hot topic the last time that we talked, or was it a trigger point for them? Has something recently happened that will affect their perspective? And I don't mean necessarily deep things, but do they actually have 10 other deadlines that are happening? Is this just another one that's being added to them? Are they going to have mental capacity to process? Did they just get out of a meeting? In other words, is the timing right? We want to consider the timing. Is it the end of the day and they have 3 minutes left? They're trying to leave, or they just walk in and drop off their keys and they're trying to get settled in. In other words, is it really the right time? This is all tied to being aware of them, not just your need to have information. And the third one, what do they actually need from me right now? I think that's key. We want to is this, in other words, are we teeing this up for a future conversation, or do we have to have it now? So do we actually realize this isn't the right time? So I want to tee it up and say, hey, I want to cover a topic with you, whatever topic that is. If now's not the right time, can we schedule a meeting, say by Friday at 3 o'clock to discuss this? A heads up that something needs to be their immediate attention. So maybe you're just giving them a heads up, like, hey, I want you to be aware of this. Are you up to speed on X point in the process? Great. I have some new additional information, or let's take a few steps back because I think you're missing some information. Again, just that clarity on awareness with them. Whether you're a parent, a partner, a team leader, your words have to meet people where they are, not just where you are. It's easy, I know, for me to just want to share information and assume they're up to speed. Let's go. That many times is just not true. Once you've tuned in to the other person's world, the next step can be even harder, though, but more powerful, and that is listening to understand. So let's go to that. Consideration number two is listen first, speak second. We've all heard this, but what does that actually mean? Well, here's the number one mistake I see, even with high-level leaders. We listen to respond, not to understand. I see this, and I've done this myself when someone else is talking, so I've been guilty. My mouth is actually open, ready to respond, or it's partially open. If you watch some of my interviews, I've actually caught myself doing this on interviews. People are talking and I want to respond, and it's like, actually, I just need to listen and engage with them. Fortunately, I now catch myself doing this more, and I pause at that. Now, this doesn't mean that you need to stand there for 20 minutes or sit there for 20 minutes listening to information you already know. That's not practical. What it does mean is if you listen to understand, you can quickly understand that I'm already up to speed on this, and then you can stop and clarify. Again, true communication starts with listening. So here's some ideas to do it well. I'm going to give you a couple of them. Three, I believe, three ways, yeah, to do it well. One is reflective listening. So in other words, you're hearing what they're saying, and you want to do reflective listening. You can respond in a couple ways. One way I do it is, what I hear you saying is, and then let them confirm it. In other words, if you just say what I hear you saying is, and you keep on going, that's not reflective listening. But in the situation, I said, like, for standing there for 20 minutes, you don't want to do that. This is an example where you could use reflective listening and save time. What I hear you saying is, and if they say yes, then you can simply come back with, well, you may not be aware, but I'm up to speed on that. So is there anything new past X point? Another option is stay curious. You can do that by asking, can you tell me more about that? Instead of jumping in with a fix, like they give you a problem or they give you an idea and you give your thoughts or your solutions, dive deeper. Be curious. Can you tell me more about that? The key here is dialogue, not just to keep the conversation going. We don't want that. If you're not truly interested, then don't fake it. However, if you are engaged, and there's a very high chance that you will connect and learn. This has paid off dividends for me. People have talked to me about a topic. I assume that I know what they're talking about. And when I push back a little bit nicely and say, hey, tell me more about that, and they do, it really highlights I'm not on the same page. So take the time, listen, let them do. This will save you a lot of time. It's cost me, so I'm trying to help you out here. Number three, pause before speaking. I've gone over this a lot in different episodes. That 2 to 3 second pause helps you avoid reacting out of emotion. I think this is hard for everyone, but it really does help. Even a simple nod is enough of a reaction, can give you time to think. Also, don't fall into the trap that you must have an answer for everything. I know newer leaders fall into that trap, and then also experienced leaders fall into that. The new leaders fall into it because, like, oh, they're going to think I don't know how to lead if I don't have an answer. Wrong. Experienced leaders think, oh, I am at the top. I know everything. Wrong. So have a check there with where you are. Consideration 3, 4 communication pitfalls to avoid. Let's hit some of the most common traps that derail good communication. 1, assumptions. We can't assume someone's tone, intent, or meaning, especially over text or email. I mean, you just can't. Clarify instead. Can I check with what you meant by that? It's a simple question, but what did you actually mean? I mean, what do you mean by that? I did a video on the assumption ladder. You can watch that. It's helped me so much. It's a quick episode. But the point of that is, are you basing what you're assuming on facts or on observations? Now, your observations may be facts. They're facts that you saw it, but they're based through a filter of assumptions, and you want to base your assumptions on facts, not just what you've seen. The next one is vagueness. Avoid timelines like soon or later, or can you get that to me sometime in the near future? That just doesn't work. Be specific. Can you have that to me by Friday at noon? This one has tripped me up for so many years in business and personally. Actually, I would say not being vague helped me stop micromanaging in business and help me communicate better with my wife, because I don't have to nag. People have already agreed when things are going to be due, when they're going to report in. I know when people are going to check in. I know when I can check in. If I don't hear anything back by Friday at noon, for example, Friday at 3 o'clock, I can say, hey, we agreed at noon. What's going on? Could you give me an update on that? It's natural versus I want to check in, but I don't want to make them feel like I'm micromanaging. This can really save you some time, stress, and build trust. The next one is emotional leading in the message. What I mean by that, if you're frustrated, your tone can sabotage your words. Emotional regulation in communication mastery is so important. Be self-aware enough to know if this is not the right time to have the conversation because your head is not in the right place. How? Well, some questions to ask, just self-assessment. Are you frustrated? Do you believe the other person is ignoring you or is in the wrong? Are you getting tunnel vision? These are just some simple things. The list goes on. Again, you may still need the information or feel you need the information now, but do you? Do you really need it right now? And if you do, then make sure you're in the right place with your mindset. Take a few minutes to process why you're feeling this way. It's likely that is actually the real conversation, not what you actually want to talk about. Many times when I've coached people and worked with people, they're frustrated because people aren't reporting in. Actually, that's not what they're frustrated about. They're frustrated about something else, whether it's their performance as a manager or as a leader, their performance in communication, their performance in you fill in the blank, but they're using that current experience that's happening right now as a springboard to react. You don't want to do that. You want to back off. Don't burn a bridge just because you're impatient. And the last one is talking too much, especially as a leader. Talking more doesn't mean leading better. Say less, ask more. I think this happens out of innocence many times. It's not intentional. And it's just part of lack of self-awareness. This is an area that I'm currently growing in. I'm constantly asking, seriously, I did it this week. Do they really need to know that this story or history or fact, or you fill in the blank? Or is it just me wanting to talk? In other words, is it relevant? Is it even make sense? So use the acronym WAIT. I use that WAIT. Why am I talking? Think about that when you're talking. Why am I talking right now? So how do we apply all this at work and at home? Well, let's shift gears and get tactical. First one is how to communicate well at work. You know, at work, communication is your leadership currency. I really do believe that. So there's 3 ways to level up. 1, align before you assign. Before giving directions, ask, are we all on the same page? How will we measure success? What's the desired outcome? When will we check in? You fill in the blank. I'm just giving you some ideas here, but whatever you need to do to assign and then leave it alone. So you have to align first, then you can assign, and then you can leave it alone. Number 2, remember to use the right medium. What I mean by that is in writing, tone is so easy to misread. So do you need to use a voice memo or quick video message? If the topic is emotionally charged, better yet, walk to their office and clarify in person. I did that this week. There was an email going back and forth. It wasn't heated, but it was kind of like, it wasn't great, it wasn't bad. I sent my final response and then I walked over and said, hey, can we debrief where we are with this meeting? Save time, reduce stress by ensuring you use the right medium to communicate. And number 3, model clarity. Clarity is kindness. Kim Scott uses that a lot in her book. And I just think it's so important. Don't assume people know what you expect. Be direct and supportive. In other words, what is due by when and by whom? Who is responsible for what? I expect to report on this date, or I'll be forced to be more hands-on. Just clearly saying that up front is very important. Again, Kim Scott talks about that in her book, Radical Candor. And then the next one is leadership application as far as communicating as a leader. When you step into leadership, every word you say carries weight. It really does, in public anyway. Here's how great leaders communicate. Leaders cast vision. People need to hear the why behind the work, not every single detail. But if you're just telling them to do things and there's no why, you're not leading. Leaders give feedback well. And how do you want to do that? I use the SBI model, situation, behavior, impact. So in other words, situation, yesterday's client's call, behavior, you cut the client off mid-sentence. Impact, they shut down for the rest of the meeting. So you're very specific. What was the situation? What was the behavior? And what was the impact? You can't argue with the fact. Well, people can argue with the facts, but it gives you a place to have the dialogue. And then also leaders invite honesty. If no one pushes back on any of your ideas, they just sit there and they're quiet, you may not be leading, you might just be intimidating. So is there someone safe you can talk to and ask, how am I coming across? How can I communicate better? And remember, how you communicate becomes your team's culture. Speak with clarity, lead with humility, and also by example. Let's get practical with 3 simple action steps this week. Number 1, practice reflective listening. Use the phrase or a phrase like this, what I hear you saying is, in a real conversation. Number 2, Clarify instead of assuming. If someone feels off, ask about it. Don't guess. And number three, be specific in your ask. In other words, swap soon or later with exact times and expectations. Do you want help living this out? Well, download my free 7-page toolkit, which includes a self-assessment checklist, conversation planner, sample scripts, and more. Get it now. The link is in the show notes. Just a reminder, every episode I have, at least almost every single one, has a free toolkit with it. There's free. There's no strings attached. You just got to give your name and email. You can download those. If this video added value to your day, please hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment. How are you communicating better at work or at home with this? What are ways that you've shifted your communication to be a better leader? Until next time, I'm Jonathan Hankin, your leadership coach. Keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading change.